Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your Whisky neighbor here. Welcome out to the deck. Welcome to a beautiful early summer Canadian Saturday. And I threw Canadian in there because I realized that July 1st, Canada Day, is coming up really quick, and I haven't shot a lot of Canadian whiskey lately. So I'm going to shoot two today. I'm going to focus on mountain whiskey. This Mountain Pass whiskey is very local. Came into the market pretty recently. I picked it up in about February. And certainly I'm glad that I'm going to be able to share some thoughts, share a dram of this with you. If you have any Canadian whiskey, why don't you pour a dram, sip along? I think we'll see if any of the notes that you get are similar to what I get. And specifically, if you have Mountain Pass, why don't you pour that? And when we come back, I'll talk about Mountain Pass Canadian whiskey. 3, 4. Well, thanks for staying with me. As I said, we're coming up on July 1st, a nice day to celebrate a few things Canadian, and one thing we could celebrate would be some of our whiskey. This release from the Fort Distillery, and it's a little confusing, maybe I'll get into that later because if you go to Fort Distillery in Fort Saskatchewan, you'll see whiskeys and whatnot, but you won't see Mountain Pass. But if you go to the Mountain Pass website, you will be able to see this whiskey, and if you look at their history, the founder of Mountain Pass is also the owner of the Fort Distillery, and they both say Fort Distillery at the bottom, so I'm not quite sure what the separate venture is. But this Mountain Pass is a mix of 4- and 6-year-old corn whiskeys. It's 100% corn, aged in ex-bourbon, and then, as I said, those different ages, blended by their master blender, who I don't know if it's Nathan or not, but it's someone there who's put together this experience, and they do a lot of social media. We'll talk about their glacier water, Canadian glacial water, which certainly we're quite proud of. Both our mountains and are some pretty clean water coming off those glaciers. Anyways, let's talk the whiskey. It's 40%, 100% corn, 4- and 6-year-old on the nose. I think as you'd expect from 100% corn, aged in ex-bourbon, it's sweet, it's vanilla, it's caramel. Not a lot of fruit going on here. It tends toward maybe just a little bit of cinnamon spicing and just more of that, maybe like a golden delicious apple. So there's a little bit of fruit, but mostly a lot of sweetness. Let's try it on the palate. Cheers. Decent feeling in the mouth. It's clean. More buttered caramel, more Werther toffee, more unwrapped, unpeeled caramels they used to dip apples in to make a nice caramel apple. It's very, for me, sweet, buttery caramel. It is, I suggest, a pretty classic Canadian profile. There's oak on the early finish or on the back end, but not a lot. It is a distillate forward, corn whiskey forward note. Sweet, light. I think it would go very well in some cocktails. And if this is your style of whiskey, I think it's done right. I suspect at 40% we're chill filtered, and it doesn't say, so I also suspect that we're colored because it's pretty young and it's ex-bourbon. It's not new oak, so it's not going to get a lot of aggressive char color out of there. So we're probably colored, we're probably filtered. This is a style that I think would be, would compare very well to, the Rupert's whiskey out of Eau Claire or Signal Hill. Some of the craft Canadian liquid that's come out, and that's what I should have shot it against, but I don't have any of that open. So we are going to go to a big distillery. But for me, it's tough for me to rate this because they're local. They're, I think, a very energetic group of new distillers, and it's decent. It's just not to what my palate goes to a lot, considering the breadth of whiskeys that I go for. And so it's going to sit for a star rating for me You know, really not going to get off the floor 3 1/4, 3 1/2. It's about what I can do for it. But I like the story. It's a nice presentation, and if you certainly like your classic Canadian, a little more butter, a little more caramel on it, I think you would enjoy it, and it'd be a great pick for Canada Day weekend. As I said, I really should be shooting it against some of those newer craft emerging Canadian whiskeys. Instead, I'm going to go to a big player, Crown. Now, this isn't the regular Crown. This is Crown Black. So, you know, Crown Royal is out of Gimli, Manitoba, so it certainly is Canadian and certainly sells probably the most Canadian whiskey there is. This black is noted to be extra matured or additionally matured in charred oak barrels. Beyond that, I really don't know because it's such a big blending house. Crown is known for blending a lot of different whiskeys, like up to 40 or so in their regular Crown whiskey. So in typical Canadian style, they distill and age whiskeys typically separately, right? The corn, the rye, the wheat, whatever they're looking for, and then they kind of blend to create the flavor profile they're looking for. As I, suspect Mountain Pass is colored, I absolutely, without any doubt, know that Crown Black is colored. It is insanely colored. It stands out immediately as fake color. You can't not pour this or see this and think like a cola, cherry Coke or something. But that aside, it is released at 45%, so it's got a little extra kick to it. And as I noted, they indicate there's a higher portion of whiskey in here that has had either a deeper char level on the barrel or just re-aged in some heavier charred oak. This nose brings in some more rye spice, some cherry notes. It still has some of that sweet toffee and vanilla going on. There's definite fruit notes for me on here. For me, it's pretty much cherry, a little more bourbon-esque almost. There's a bit of oak on the nose, but there's also a little artificial cherry cola. Maybe because the coloring, I don't know, but I get a little bit of that too. Let's try it on the palate. Cheers. There is more oak. There's more spice, there's more cinnamon, but there's also some Christmas spicing in here. Cherry's more now sweeter, so it's maraschino cherry. A little bit of apple, a few other fruits kicking around. Try another sip. Yeah, it's got to be power suggestion, but almost got a little bit of cola notes on it. There is significantly more spicing and a broader palette of flavors going on. Some of them potentially more artificial, potentially off-putting. You know, that edge of artificial sweetener that's going on that I don't like. But, this is a big house. It's not a craft, and they've really overcolored it. But flavor-wise, I actually don't mind Crown Black. Surprising. So, while this is a small house and craft release and glacier water and not the same ballpark, the flavor notes of Crown Black is pretty good, and it's a pretty good value. And if I'm giving a Mountain Pass, 3 1/4, this 3 1/2 for sure. And right now, it's lighting up my palate just with a little more energy and a little bit more excitement. Nothing against Mountain Pass, beautiful release, great stuff going on, but this Crown actually has a ton of flavor, although it just feels like it's like opening up a can of Coke and trying to say, and compare it to a craft cola cane sugar release. It's just a bad comparison. And I apologize to both houses, but that's how the whiskey tastes today. And I wanted to give you guys maybe an idea of what am I looking at bringing? What kind of party am I going to? Am I going to a barbecue? Am I going to with small friends, lots of friends? And certainly, if you want a bit more of a conversation piece, I would recommend the Mountain Pass. It's got a better story, as I said, small craft release. And if you're looking just for to put a bottle with a bunch of other bottles, you guys are just having a good afternoon, maybe the Black, because it actually has quite a bit of spicing and quite a bit of flavors that would hold up to a variety of ways to enjoy whiskey. Thank you for joining me here. It's actually got a little too hot for me out here, so I'm going to get off the deck and seek something a little bit cooler to enjoy the afternoon. You guys take care.